Hello and welcome to Turf and Touchdowns podcast number 5. We're focusing on horse racing action today over in the US as per usual. We are in New York. I'm going to do that again, but we're going to keep it in because Alfie, my 7-year-old, Tom, has told me how to introduce the show on YouTube.
Go on. What's his suggestion?
So, hey guys, welcome to my channel.
Yeah, I like it. It's very prototypical, that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's number 1. Make sure you like and subscribe, leave a comment down below, which we already do, to be fair. But he was giving me tips this morning on how people can feel more at home on YouTube because he watches a few YouTubers and that's what they do.
I like it. Well, why not? I mean, it's better than my usual intro when you throw to me and I ask how you're doing without waiting for a reply.
How you doing? Right, moving on. How are you, Tom? You well?
Yeah, to be fair, I am good. Last week, the Preakness, it was a very tricky Saturday and obviously, the track was in a very wet condition after lots of rain at Pimlico. Surprisingly, they didn't seal it before the race, which led to a strange result with Seize the Grey winning. But obviously, he's now going towards the Belmont, mixes up the 3-year-old division even more. Since then, personal life has been all good. No car crashes this week, Luke.
Proud of you. Any drop burgers?
Not this week either, no. But to be fair, I haven't had any burgers, so it would be difficult to drop one.
You are crushing life, my friend. That's all I've got for you. I do feel that the weather last week did sort of provide a bit of a funny result with Seize the Grey in the Preakness, but after Muth came out, it wasn't the strongest of races. I do still stand by that. I think Tuscan Gold is the best horse in that Preakness. He just never travelled at all. Watching it back, I think our fate was sealed fairly early on. And also, as we said, we want Tyler Gaffalione to jump on the early pace, and it just never happened. He was always behind.
Yeah, he was a bit too far back, and he always just seems to be niggled along the whole way, didn't he? And the fate was kind of known early on in that race. He ran perfectly fine for 4th. I think he'll definitely improve for the step up if he does go to the Belmont. I don't know whether that's been confirmed or not confirmed yet, but I don't know whether he's got the quality to win a Triple Crown leg. He should be good in the second half of the season, though. With more experience, he'll definitely improve. I thought the actual race was perfectly fine in terms of quality. Mystic Dan and Catching Freedom both ran probably what we saw in the Kentucky Derby. They just repeated that run and bumped into a front runner who clearly rode the bias.
Yeah, absolutely so. But Seize the Grey took out the Preakness of 2024. Just before we move into things properly, I'm going to throw a banana skin at you here. Have you got any, I would say systems, but any things in US racing that you just like to bet or like to follow?
Yeah, I mean, several. I don't know how many you want me to list here.
I just love winners.
No, but obviously you've got to find huge angles with all racing, whether that be UK, US, whether it be finding a lone speed, finding a horse in a turf contest that will come from off the pace at tracks that suit closers like Keeneland or Belmont at the Big A. Gulfstream, you want to be near the speed. I mean, there are numerous different angles. I'm not necessarily one for following form lines as such. I know you are. That might be a slight difference.
Are you just talking about that one Sandra Anita race that you keep bringing up to me?
I absolutely am, yeah.
Literally, it was Ruby Nell, be Nadette.
Yeah.
Who was third?
It was a horse that's won since that you definitely backed anyway.
Either way, the form's fantastic. Even for California, it's travelling out. But I was talking to you a little while ago, and I said I'm going to work out a way to get this horse into the podcast. But there's a sire over in America called Vaquero, who we know in the UK because he came over to England and he finished 5th in King's Stand. But as a cheap stallion, he started off in Florida for $5,000. He has been absolutely crushing it over in the US. And first time out horses at Gulfstream and Tampa, they're generally not really that far away. And a lot of the time they go off prices. Now, he's moved up to New York. He's standing, I think, for $7,500 now, but he's getting a better caliber of mare. At the moment, as it stands, he's the leading sire this season in New York, which is just fantastic so far. I think he's lifetime, he's had 48% of horses in the money, which is just, again, a fantastic record for a lower cost stallion. So there's my mention of Vaquero. I absolutely love him.
Yeah, it's a good angle, to be fair. And obviously with those kind of breeding and pedigree angles, they go overlooked by the majority of punters, especially in the UK, who wouldn't necessarily get that information unless they dig a little bit deeper, go on some US websites like Equibase or whatnot. So it's worth looking out for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And also in the UK, we don't really know Bakero that well. Obviously, me and Tom do because we're US racing nerds and that's what we apply our time to. But over in the UK, he's more of an unknown, but becoming better known. He's got one runner over here at the moment. However, let's move on to the feature race of the week. It's going to be good for this week. Next week, we're going to probably mix up the show a little bit because there's not much in the US next week. However, the Pennine Ridge Stakes is normally a good contest. I think we previewed this race a couple of years ago on a separate podcast, and Tom put up some horse called Emmanuel that I said had absolutely no chance. And Emmanuel jumped onto the lead, got the softest lead in the world, and won. And it turned out, Tom, that Emmanuel was a pretty good horse as well.
Yeah, he's become a really nice middle distance turf horse for Todd Pletcher. That race, though, was very helpful for him. I mean, there was no other speed in the race, and he was just able to dictate, as you say. Similarities between that year and this year. Where's the speed coming from in 2024? I mean, I've looked down the field, a good field of horses, maybe one or two aside. No out and out front runner, though, from what I can see.
No, I wish Emmanuel was in this because you just go around in circles a touch. We'll start with the UK runner because Charlie Appleby's got Legend of Time in this spot. Joel Rosario is an interesting jockey booking. They're seemingly Godolphin over in the US are using anyone they possibly can. But Legend of Time, we say a UK runner. He's had very limited runs actually in the UK.
Yeah, he's only had two starts in the UK, one win and one fifth. Then he went to Meydan in January. Well, that was when his first race was. Obviously, shipped over beforehand. And he won 3 consecutive races over in the UAE, looking like a really nice horse. They then sent him to the US as part of this satellite yard that Charlie Appleby and Godolphin are using this year over in the US. He was sent off 6-5 in the Grade 2 American Turf, one of the best turf races for 3-year-olds. He was just way too keen in the early stages. Frankie Dettori rode him that day. He had a huge grip of his reins, trying to restrain him and get him back into a stalking, settled position. Legend of Time wasn't having any of it, and he eventually faded out for 5th. I think he actually ran okay, considering his tank would have been empty turning in. He wouldn't have had that kick that we saw over in Meydan. The question is he going to be keen again? Because there isn't likely to be that fast early pace, as we've just talked about. Maybe Joel Rosario goes forward, but Joel's usually known as a rider that's best on closers. So, bit of an interesting jockey booking, interesting pace scenario. I do think he's the horse to beat, though.
Yeah, I think he's a horse to catch as well, because I'd like to think he will go to the front end. That's the one that I'm using anyway. There might be one or two others. Something like St. James the Great might try and go forward, but it does sort of muddy the waters a little bit. A horse that we both like is a horse called Royal Majesty, who, again, started off life in the UK, only had one run for Roger Varian, went over to America, and he's been progressive, albeit we haven't seen much of him in the US.
No, he's a son of Frankel. He's got that lovely staying turf pedigree. And obviously Belmont with these types of horses, he just improves them from run to run. He went straight into my notebook after his 5th in the Colonel Liam Stakes at Gulfstream. Impossible to close in that race. They went slow fractions throughout the whole first 3/4 of that event. Any horse out the back had no chance. That includes Triple Espresso, who we might talk about later, who finished 4th, and Royal Majesty, who finished a good 5th. Straight into my notebook, as I say. Then he went to Keeneland for an allowance race that was definitely winnable and managed to get the job done despite being bumped at the break. The question I have with Royal Majesty is, where's the limit for him? We don't really know where his ceiling is. He's quite clearly an improving horse, going places right now. There's no early speed in the race, so he may be against the bias again, but he's worth looking at least for place money in here.
Yeah, he's a sort of horse. It really wouldn't shock you if Royal Majesty was a group horse or graded horse further down the line, but he's got all the ability. It's just whether the race sets up perfectly for him. He was a horse that he entered my notebook, as Tom said, 2 starts ago at Gulfstream. And you know horses that you just completely forget to back?
Yeah, I do know this because I sent you a message after he won at Keeneland.
I'm livid.
And you were fuming.
I think I was just doing something else, and I completely forgot that horse racing was happening. And you just message me, "Oh, thank God for Royal Majesty." Yeah. And I don't think I can repeat what my reply was, but he won it like 7-2 or something. I'm still not really there, but I was livid at that. The Chad Brown pair in this spot, I mean, good luck trying to work them out. You got White Palomino, who's ran a couple of times, and then the even harder to predict Risk Tolerance, who has run once, looked very good. But Flavian Pratt and Manny Franco, the 2 riders, Herodotus Jr. is elsewhere. I don't know if he would have had a choice on either of them. But either way, he would be one of the regular riders for Chad Brown.
Yeah, exactly. Jose Ortiz rode White Palomino last time. They've decided to put Flavian on. I think Flavian basically gets the choice whenever he wants to ride for Chad, so that one's no surprise for me. And White Palomino is an interesting runner in here, given he represents the connections of the brilliant Jack Christopher a few years ago. Same owner, same trainer, and jockey kind of. He was impressive last time, White Palomino at Keeneland, but he had the ideal trip just in behind the speed, was against the rail. The gap opened up beautifully for him in the straight, and he just kicked on through. The form I don't think is overly strong. And actually, if you look to his debut, he got beaten by Triple Espresso, who reopposes today. So I think he's got to take a step forward. He's also drawn one. And I think Flavian may be forced to go forward and try to dictate the pace. He could be one of the speeds up there with the Jolly, what we're assuming is going to be the Jolly and the Godolphin horse. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets a good setup up front. The other one, Risk Tolerance, I have no idea what to make of him. Yeah. He showed a good turn of foot on debut. This is a big step up in class. He may fall a little bit short.
Yeah, it's a big leap into a race like this, missing out sort of any sort of allowance company or a natural stepping stone. I'll mention the one that I like in the race. I'm worried about the setup, but I'm a big fan of Triple Espresso. As a horse in general, he was an eye catcher in that Royal Majesty race, as we mentioned a couple of starts ago. Then he went to Turfway Park last time around. Now, Turfway Park, if you're a UK viewer and you don't really know about Turfway, it's a synthetic track, but they do host a fair few nice races, the Jeff Ruby being one of them, which is a grade 3 over 9 furlongs. That's a pointer towards a Kentucky Derby, and when you read out horses that are in there, you understand that this was a stepping stone for quite a few. Endlessly won the race, was quite impressive. West Saratoga was in there. He went to Churchill Downs, and Seize the Grey was in there. Obviously didn't go to Churchill, but won the Preakness last week. So that form is good. It's just a case of now reverting that form back to turf, which I don't think should be any sort of issue. Jose Ortiz went through about a month where he wasn't fantastic. He wasn't the Jose Ortiz that we know, and he was making a few odd decisions. He did that in this race. For whatever reason, instead of following Seize the Grey out wide, he tried to duck inside, and he got into a real barging match with one of the other runners. I don't even know which one it was, but he lost all chance at the top of the home straight. He still made up good ground into fourth. I think he should have been a lot closer. Arguably, he could have even won the race. I'm not sad that he didn't, because he wouldn't have been here otherwise, but I do think Triple Espresso is very interesting. The one thing I wish, Tom, I wish he had an extra runner in this race for UK purposes. He'd be a fantastic each way bet. With 3 places on offer, but in America, win, place, show. I'm more than happy with that.
Yeah, I was thinking he was going to be on my shortlist for sure, and he was the last off the shortlist actually. But for me, it wasn't the extra runner for the places that necessarily I was annoyed about. It was the fact there was no speed in here, because he's going to be right out the back. I'm thinking probably last or second last in the early stages, and Aaron Ortiz will wind him up around the turn and hope that he can outkick these front runners. It's just whether the leaders go slow enough in the early stages to save energy for that kick. If so, it may resort Triple Espresso to either make an early move to get close, or Irad just picking up the pieces late in the day. But he's definitely an interesting runner. I completely agree with you. And actually, when Irad's ridden him, he's 1 from 2, and the only defeat came in that Gulfstream Colonel Liam Stakes, where he was just against the bias. So I like the jockey move for him. Royal Majesty was the other one on my shortlist. Again, likely to be against a setup. So, unfortunately, I'm doing something I hate, Luke. I'm defaulting on what I think is going to be the favourite in Legend of Time. I think he's the most talented horse, and he's going to be near this speed. That is the perfect concoction in a race like this. Hopefully, Joel Rosario rides him well. There is a lot of hope here, because I never know with him. Especially on forward-going horses, he's better on closers where he can find the gap and use his, tactical nous. On forward-going horses, he can get a bit grippy, I'd say. If you remember watching him on Warlike Goddess a few years ago, he rode her poorly in a couple of races where he tried to move forward and then ended up basically strangling her in the middle part of the race. So hopefully Legend of Time settles into a stalking position. From there, I think he's going to prove very difficult, but we'll see what happens. This is a very interesting race, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the only thing that I really dislike about Legend of Time is Maidan form. I hate Maidan form travelling anywhere else, in particular with Godolphin runners, because a lot of them, they do, for whatever reason, seem to peak over in Dubai. But I just hate that form travelling elsewhere. Legend of Time does need to improve from last time, but if Joel Rosario goes forward, he could well have a fairly nice sit. Are you going Royal Majesty to take on Triple Espresso?
It's a difficult one. We don't have prices when we're filming this. We're filming this at 12
Well, we don't
midday,
even have
basically.
morning. We don't have morning line prices. There's
Exactly.
nothing. We're going into this race blind, basically.
Yeah, we're filming this midday Thursday. I mean, you would expect there to be at least morning line prices, but the entries didn't come out until late in the day. I think if they were around the same price, Royal Majesty and Triple Espresso, I would probably side with Triple Espresso. But I don't know what price they're going to open on the morning line, or even more importantly, I don't know what price they're going to be in the UK. So I'll sit that one out. But I think they'll both run really good races.
I think it will be an open market. I think Legend of Time would be about 7-4, 2-1 or so. Triple Espresso, I'm hoping would be about sixes.
Yeah,
That's sort of the ballpark that I was in, and I would imagine Royal Majesty is going to be very similar as well. But I just don't know what the market's going to make of the Chad Brown pair.
yeah. I think Legend of Time is the obvious favourite, maybe 6-4, maybe a little bit shorter, depending on how aggressive the firms want to be. White Palomino and run risk tolerance, they have similar chances around 6-1. I think Royal Majesty might actually be the second favourite, 3 or 4-1. Triple Espresso, I honestly don't know what they're going to make of that Turfway form. So he could easily be 4-1, he could easily be 8-1. That's the horse I think you're looking at for a value standpoint, whether you're looking for the place or win. If he's 8-1, 10-1, then he's definitely a play.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. If any UK bookmakers, hi guys, are willing to go three places, then that would just be wonderful as well. That's the look at the Pennine Ridge. Just quickly, I've got one more fancy for the weekend. Runs at Churchill in race 7. I haven't even told you this, have I?
No.
I just said I'm going to mention something else at the end of the day. Bound for Nowhere's in there. Love Bound for Nowhere, but it's not him. He's 3-1 on the morning line. If there's a horse called Zumbi in here, if Zumbi is any way near that 10-1 on the morning line, he is a fantastic each way bet. Luan Mercado takes the ride, a rider that we didn't really know a great deal about until Keeneland came about this year. And he, to be fair, just started crushing it. And then he carried that form into Churchill, and he's been riding really, really well. Now, his form has been very up and down recently, but his form does tie in with running on turf and then synthetic surfaces. You go back last time around, I thought he was a real eye catcher at Churchill when coming from the back of the field. That was in a race behind Outer Door. Counter Strikes in here as well. He was also in there, and he ran really well against the bias. Turfway part at the start before, disappointed. Ran on turf at Keeneland the start prior to that. He ran really well. There is only 2 turf runs, and he's also ran 2 very nice speed figures on both of them, 88 and 89. And I think he's capable of better. So look, back on turf, we'll pray that rain stays away. But I think Zumbi is a great each way shout. Hopefully he's around that 10-1. He's also for sort of more unknown connections. So in the UK, we might get a better price, Tom, because Bound for Nowhere is going to eat up a fair bit of the market. But look, it's a race that you probably haven't looked at, but I love Zumbi from an each way shout.
Yeah, I'll have a look straight after this podcast. I haven't actually looked at any of Saturday's races yet. What time was the race, did you say?
Race 7. Don't know what time it is.
Is it a normal card? Will it be about 8 p.m. or is it a late card for Churchill? Do you know?
3:51 local time, so that'll be about
8:51.
8:51, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll be on Sky Sports Racing. You're on Sky Sports Racing this Saturday.
I think I am.
Okay, we can talk about it more in detail there.
I'm not convinced. I'm pretty sure I'm meant to be there, but I think I am. Yeah, that should be some sort of plan. But yeah, I'm on the late bit, so that's probably before I get there. But yeah, I'm 10 till 2.
Okay, cool. Well, anyway, we'll discuss the race later in the day, or I'll discuss it when we preview. So I'll definitely look to see what price he opens up. But yeah, a nice little secondary selection there, aside from the main race from you.
Yeah, hopefully we're celebrating that anyway later on. But Zumbi over at Churchill is the selection elsewhere. He'd be one of my bets of the weekend. Please, if you enjoyed this, leave a comment down below. Who do you like in the Pennine Ridge? Any more fancies across the weekend? It could be in the UK as well. Do let us know. It's a good weekend of action. Obviously building towards the Derby, albeit we will discuss that at a later date. Do subscribe. You'll keep updated with everything that we've got. We are Turf Touchdowns on Twitter, or I think it's officially X now, and we also on pretty much every other social media, Turf and Touchdowns, where we try and put out as much as we possibly can. But Tom, thank you very much for your company once again. We'll do it again next week, where we've got an NFL podcast coming out, and also we've got a horse racing one where, I'll be honest, I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, the NFL one should be interesting. The horse racing one, there's no feature event. There are a load of graded races at Churchill, so maybe we just pick one or two across the card that are interesting on morning line prices. But we'll work it out before next week's set. Hopefully, we have a winner this weekend as well, and we can celebrate that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for listening to the Turf and Touchdowns podcast. I say follow us on social, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and leave a comment down below on who you're backing this weekend. Myself and Tom will see you on Sky Sports Racing this Saturday night. Until we next get to speak to you, stay safe, look after another. Goodbye.